Acts chapter 27. I'm just going to read verses number 33 down to verse 38. Verse 33 down to verse 38. And it says, "And as the day was about to dawn, Paul implored them all to take food, saying, 'Today is the 14th day you have waited and continued without food and eaten nothing. Therefore I urge you to take nourishment, for this is for your survival, since not a hair will fall from the head of any of you.' And when he had said these things, he took bread and gave thanks to God in the presence of them all. And when he had broken it, he began to eat. Then they were all encouraged and also took food themselves. And in all, we were 276 persons on the ship. So when they had eaten enough, they lightened the ship and threw out the wheat into the sea." We're back this morning once again in part 4 of our series, "It's Not Your Fault, It's Your Faith." We have been here for a few weeks now, and it has been our intention as we would illuminate and put a spotlight on our own individual lives. All of us, each individual, each family, each person seemingly is going through our own life circumstance or journey. I am finding that as we have been in chapter 27, I've become anxious because in chapter 27, it is loaded with so many variables of how Paul, along with the prisoners, the soldiers, as well as the sailors, deal with the sea and the storm. All of us are today, in some way or another, trying to find something solid that we can hold on to in this most trying time of our lives. I know that what I'm saying is a general statement because some may be on the line and saying, "There's nothing going on in my life. Everything is fine. God has blessed me. I have no problems. I'm sleeping well at night. I'm not having any problems on my job. I'm not having any problems in my marriage. My kids are well. My neighbors are treating me well. My vehicles are fine. I'm not struggling to make ends meet." But I believe this general statement today, I believe that all of us are dealing with something. We're all dealing with something, trying to find some peace. As we have been in this series talking about it's not your fault. In this, we've talked about your fault. We've talked about what has transpired in the past, the decisions that we have made in the past and seemingly can't shake those. It is our human nature, our human tendency to draw back on what we've done. I am reminded that we often believe that what we're going through has absolutely everything to do with what we've done, the decisions that we've made. And I am coming to grips that the God that we serve is a loving God. He loves us so much that he's willing to do anything to keep us close to him. In this text, we have navigated, and I know that I have at points done a disservice of trying to rush through, knowing that we really don't have a time schedule, but I want to always be mindful of those of you who are here seeking an answer from God and wanting God to confirm or solidify exactly what is going on in your own life. These men, as we have navigated through last week, I've understood that they have taken measures in throwing things overboard and making it somewhat easy to try to navigate through the storms, and being able to take a survey and go through all of the things that they possess to try to figure out if those things would have something to do with bringing peace and contentment in the current storm that they're in. You and I are familiar with this because we are constantly taking assessments when things go wrong in our lives to try to figure out what is the root cause of what we're going through. What is it that has caused us to be where we are? Whether you are at a place where you are distrusting or disenfranchised or disappointed, or just at some point trying to find your place and you feel displaced. Things seemingly were going really well for some time, but right now it just appears as if you just can't right this ship in your life. These men have been in this storm for 14 days. And I know that we can identify with something that comes into our lives and upends our lives and causes us to not want to do what is absolutely necessary in order to survive the storms that we're going through. We're constantly looking for immediate relief in order to stop the storm, in order to steady our ship, in order to save our cargo. These men, like us, are going through extensive measures in an attempt to try to navigate through the storm without destroying the ship, without permitting the ship to be destroyed in the storm. As they take measures and initially throwing things off the ship that they do not need, they find least value in these things, believing that when they lighten the ship, that these things they can at some point get back, and they find that there is really not much value in the things that they throw away. And they find that when they throw those items overboard, that yet and still the storm continues to rage. It begins to intensify. It begins to rock the ship even more so. The lighter you make your ship, seemingly the more chaotic things become. We move into these storms in our lives, and we find a way to navigate through these storms and seemingly start to boast in our faith, that we have faith. We like to share with everyone when we come out of a storm how God has navigated and how he has carried us and brought us through the storm. But we are reluctant to share our current dilemma with those who are watching us struggle to right the ship. Your ship may be your marriage. Your ship may be your career. Your ship may be your health. Your ship may be your family. Whatever the case, you believe that God has blessed you with this ship, and therefore you are not going to lose the ship. We have found that these men, the sailors, the soldiers, and the prisoners, are all in the same boat, regardless of their stature, regardless of their financial stability, regardless of their emotional stability. They're all in the same ship, going the same way, going through the same thing. but finding that they're all having the same thing in common, which is trying to find a place where they believe that they will make it out unscathed. The Apostle Paul reminds us that after they have cut away the skiff in verse 32, that the soldiers, along with the sailors and the prisoners, are all on a unforced fast. You know how things can be so bad in your life that you lose your appetite. You have no desire to eat. Your thirst is minimal. And it's easy to go day to day without feeding your body and giving your body the energy and the nourishment it needs in order to navigate through life's storms. I don't want to move past this so fast, because in this prelude, or this crossover getting into the latter part of this chapter, the end of this chapter, it would seem as if that this is insignificant, because in these few verses, the Apostle Paul is talking about nourishment. And he's talking about making sure that you prepare yourself for what's to come. Even though he reminds them that not a hair will fall from their head, he is reminding them that you still must eat. God has declared that you will be safe, but it doesn't mean that you will be free from the storm. You and I come to God and we believe that in our righteousness and in accepting him as Lord over our lives, that it would exempt us from certain storms. We're finding that in 2021, no storm is apt to pass by you and say, oh yeah, not them, let's just keep on moving. This storm that comes into our lives, many of us are finding that these types of storms are not quick to dissipate or to disappear or to just leave our families and our lives unscathed. The Apostle Paul tells them, he says, look, you haven't eaten for 14 days. 14 days, the ship has been rocking back and forth, and they have thrown things off. They have tried to find a place to secure themselves, find a place of comfort, find a place to at least wait out the storm, just to make sure that whatever they have saved and whatever they have in their possession, they can maintain and keep. The prized possession here is the ship. So they think. But the truth is, it's their lives. Your lives are more important than anything that you possess, anything that you have worked hard to attain. Whether you have worked hard down through the years to find love, worked hard down through the years to buy your dream home, worked hard down through the years to just have peace of mind. The Apostle Paul urges them to take nourishment. And he says, this is for your survival. You have to eat because this is necessary. I can't go past this because I am reminded of those of us who wake up every morning and get about our day, have the habit of putting something in the body to reward the body for a good night's rest. But I am also reminded of some who would rather leave the house not eating because you have already planned your day accordingly and believe that you will grab a bite later, thus starving your body of the nourishment it needs to carry you through the day. This is not simply about nourishment. If you look at it on the surface, it would look like physical food. But Jesus said, man cannot live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. Oftentimes, we wake up in the morning and refuse to give ourselves some spiritual nourishment to help us navigate through the day's journey, believing that the day will start off sunny, so that is going to indicate how our day will end. But you and I know that just because the sun is shining doesn't mean that a storm is not raging. My nephew Jay, who plays football and who runs track, and my daughter Sydney, who ran track, we found it difficult as parents for Sydney to encourage her to put something on her stomach before going to a meet. Though your body may have nerves and it may be jumpy, your body feels as if it can't hold anything down. You know what's coming, that your body is going to be asked to give up the highest level of competition. As my nephew would run, talking to his mother about the track meet and knowing that he would have to prepare for the next day, being at his optimum, the first concern for her was, will you eat tomorrow? And of course, his response is, probably so. When in fact, the answer should be absolutely so. Because the body needs to be fueled in order to perform. We see this as a spiritual journey for all of us. We see, as the apostles navigate, we see this as a natural accommodation that they themselves would eat even though they are not hungry, though they haven't eaten. There's no appetite. There is no desire to consume anything. But it's because of the storm that there is no appetite. I'm familiar very much with this method, because I'm that one that when something happens in my life, the first thing that goes is my appetite. If you want to stress me out, the first thing that will do is trigger my appetite, which will start to cause my body to shut down in certain ways. It's not your fault, it's your faith. Challenges us to trust God in the uncertain storms of our lives. These men are with Paul, as all of these men are having an issue with the storm and afraid of losing their lives. They are not willing to eat. But the scripture says that the Apostle Paul reminds them that nothing will happen to them. He's encouraging them to be reminded that God is in charge and that you must take something to eat. My eyes go to verse number 35, because it says, when he had said these things, he took bread and gave thanks to God. If I'm on this ship and he is thanking God, I want to know why you thanking God in the middle of all this chaos, and it seems like we're about to lose our lives and everything that we own. Paul is showing us how to navigate through storms that the enemy would rather starve us out, causing us not to have enough energy. In this text, it's easy for things to happen and for us to not gravitate toward God and to trust God. I've been saying over the past few weeks that many of us believe God, but we don't trust God. We believe what he says. We just don't trust what he says. You may not be willing to admit it, but I'll admit it for you. We get anxious when God is saying, don't worry, I got you. After God reassures us that he has us, it's not too long after that we come back to God and we want to remind him, God, I know you said you got me, but I just want to make sure you got me. And when he sends a word saying, I got you, we are comforted for about 3 minutes. And we come back again and we say, Lord, I just want to know if you got me. I just need to know, right now, my circumstances don't measure up with what I'm feeling right now. I know what you said, but what you said at this moment is not meeting up with my storm. It's not meeting up with my circumstance. I know you said that you will comfort me, but right now I feel comfortless. I know you said you would take care of me, but I feel as if you are nowhere close to me. I feel like I'm about to lose everything. This text is reminding us to not hold dear anything except God himself. Paul does something is he gets them to ease up just for a moment to take on strength because he knows that God is about to turn it up. He's about to do something that is unpredictable. Now, I want to just a sidebar, imagine how these men on this ship would react in this day and time. I'm sure on this ship, while this is happening, there's the conversation going on that, you know what, when this is over, I will never get on another ship. When this is over, I will never go on another cruise. When this is over, I will never trust another boat. When this is over, I don't ever want to get on water. That's how we do when we go through storms in our own lives, is that we cast a wide net and decide that the trauma that we've gone through has caused us to believe that it is that thing that has caused us all the havoc. In this text, I am reminded, I have talked about this before, though I am not an airborne special forces, I have never jumped out of a plane, nor do I desire to jump from a plane. But I was sharing with a friend who was going through something tragic about trusting God. And it was at this moment that God gave me the example of when we put our trust in things, our trust in people and not our trust in God, then we will always find ourselves devastated, disappointed, distressed, and disenfranchised. I say to my friend, I said, for those who would say they will never step foot in another church because of what has happened, or they will never get married because of how that marriage turned out, or they will never be close to anyone because of what happened when they were close to someone. I said that is like putting your trust, as a paratrooper, putting your trust in the parachute instead of the one who packed the parachute. We would blame the parachute instead of the one who packed it. God has packed all of our parachutes, but yet and still we find fault with the parachute. We find fault with our current circumstance, our current dilemma, and desire to change up our lives simply because we believe the parachute has failed us. In this case, God is the one who is packing the parachute, He's the one who is packing the journey for these men on this ship. It says in verse 36, he says, then they were all encouraged and all so took food themselves. It says that altogether there were 276 persons on the ship. It said so when they had eaten enough, when they had gotten their fill, they had calmed down enough to eat enough. That they thought that after this encouraging word that the storm would die down. That after this encouraging word, the ship would stop rocking back and forth. After they had eaten, they would believe that the ship would not be broken up, that they would be able to make it to land on the ship. But it's at this point that they realized that after they had eaten, that eating still wasn't going to calm the storm. It says that at this point that when you think things have gotten bad, says that so when they had eaten enough that they lightened the ship and threw out the wheat into the sea. Basically saying, prepare yourself because this is about to get worse. I don't want to make this sound as if God is not for us, but I know that many of us make the grave mistake of believing that we can dictate when things are going to taper off. Therefore, we become disappointed when they don't. I believe that I have navigated through my life thinking that I know me well enough. And just recently discovering that I don't know myself as well as I thought I knew myself. And God, if I'm looking over my life and all the changes that I'm going through in my life, God, what have I done that would warrant this? And he simply is saying to you, it's not what you have done. It's what you must do. You're looking in the past as opposed to looking forward. You're looking in the rearview mirror as opposed to looking through the windshield. God is saying that he is preparing you for what's to come, not for what has already come. This is not personal, God is saying. This is not a vendetta. This is not a hit on you. This is now a pulling you up, that I have to prepare you for the life to come. I have to prepare you. And this storm in your life, it prepares you for what you believe was the most important thing, which is this ship that you've invested in your life. We would say, Lord, you blessed me with it, and I know it's not going anywhere. You gave him to me. You gave her to me. You gave this to me. And we know it's not going anywhere. And God is like, no, don't trust this ship. I want you to start to trust me. I know this is simple at its best. But I want you to know that as we begin to move toward closing out this series, you will find as we navigate into next week that in your own life, God is desiring to break up what you hold dear. If he is not at the front, if he is not the foundation and he is not the support, he is going to break it up. God is amazing that they would throw off the food after they had eaten, symbolically as a last meal, before their lives would drastically change. I just want to say in closing, what you're going through right now in your life is for your survival. Faith without works is absolutely dead. And I have learned this That when we say, God, I just want to please you. I just want to be in a place where I'm pleasing you. We're once again reminded without faith, it is impossible to please him.
Have faith in God. Have faith in God. Have faith in God. Have faith. Have faith in God. Have faith in God. Have faith in God. Have faith in God. Have faith in